You know, I have noticed something. Whenever some people become successful, people do ask, what school did they go to? What degree do they have? And how hard did they work? But very few people ask, what kind of home did they grow up in? And honestly, that might be one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle. I recently came across something called parenting style. At first, I thought, oh, okay, this is probably another psychology term, but the more I read, the more I realized this isn't really about psychology. It's about almost every one of us. Because whether we realize it or not, every one of us was raised in some way. Maybe your parents were strict, or maybe super relaxed, and maybe in between. And maybe they changed their pattern depending on the situation. Now, here's something interesting. Most people think parenting is just one thing. Either you are strict or you are chill, buddy. But psychologists have actually been studying this for more than 60 years. And instead of asking who's a good parent, they asked a much simpler question: how much love does a parent show, and how many boundaries do they set? That's it. Just because two questions, somehow they explain a lot. Let's start with the parenting style that most experts consider the healthiest. Imagine you come home from the school, you failed an exam, your heart is already racing. You know your parents are going to find out. Now imagine your parents saying, I am disappointed, but let's sit down and figure out what happened. Still, you are responsible and expected to improve. Hmm? I am disappointed, but let's sit down and figure out what happened. You are still responsible, but you are expected to improve. But you don't feel like you have failed as a person. That combination, love and boundaries, is called authoritative parenting. Personally, I think we have all met someone who grew up in a home like this. They usually seem confident, not because life was easy for them, but because someone believed in them while also expecting the best from them. Now let's flip the situation. Same person is failed an exam, but got the different parents. You walk through the door. Before you even explain, they start shouting. How could you do this? No excuses. Because I said so. Rules exist, discipline exists, but conversation doesn't exist. Psychologists call this authoritarian parenting. And I think almost everyone has heard of that famous sentence. You have to do this because I said so. Maybe some of you are smiling right now because you have heard it hundreds of times. And you never think like that it's what, it's good or it's bad. Maybe some of you are hearing it in your parents' voice as we speak too. Then there's another type, the parent who almost never say no. Late bedtime, okay. Another hour on the phone, good to go. Ice cream before dinner, go ahead. When you are a kid, this sounds amazing. Honestly, most children would probably choose this. But growing up isn't just about hearing yes. Sometimes we need someone to say no, not because they enjoy saying it, but because they are preparing us for a world that won't always say us either. That's called permissive parenting. Lots of love, very few limits. And then probably the saddest one. Not because the parents are evil, not because they don't care. Sometimes life is complicated. People work long hours. People struggle with the stress, mental health, financial problems. But some children grow up feeling alone. Their parents are physically there, but emotional somewhere else. This is known as neglectful or uninvolved parenting. And I think we all know that children don't just need food and clothes, they need attention. Someone to ask, how was your day? Someone who notices when something isn't right. Now, here's where it gets confusing. You probably heard people online saying there are five parenting styles. Some even say six or seven. So who's right? Well, both, and none of them. The original research described only the four main styles that we just discussed. But over the years, people started talking about things like gentle parenting, helicopter, snowplow, free range. But these are not replacing the original fours. They are more like the different approaches that parents use today. So do not get too caught up in the labels. Because honestly, I don't think any parents fit perfect into the box. Your parents might have been strict when it comes to study, but super relaxed about everything else. Maybe they become softer as you get older, maybe harder, maybe different with each sibling. Parenting isn't a personality. Parenting isn't just a personality test. It's a messy. We're human. Humans are way more different. You can't make one rule and apply on all of them like it's one for all. And here's the part I found it most interesting. Research doesn't say children need parents who never make mistakes. It doesn't say parents should always be strict or always gentle. What keeps coming up again and again is balance. Children seem to do best when they feel two things at the same time. I know I'm loved and I know there are expectations, both, not just one. So now I have a question for you. When you think about your childhood, which parenting styles sound the most familiar? Or maybe your parents not fit into any of these categories. Maybe they were mixed. I would genuinely love to hear your thoughts. Who knows? Leave them in comments. Someone reading your experience might realize they were not alone. And in the next video, let's talk about something every parent has faced. Why do children throw tantrums? Uh, Maybe people will go against this as a child or as a today's children do not want to hear anything against them, but as on the one side we are working for the betterment of the children, we will also go for the parent side too. So see you there.